Our moderator for today is none other than Reena Pereira. Avril Q is one of India's best known mindful and mindset training. Is the founder of the wellness company Avril Q. She brings to the table the concepts of mindful and mindset from the ancient wisdom perspective. Avril is an empathy who works primarily with a person's energy to align the mind, body, soul parts of a person to help them live a life of meaning, success, and purpose. In her book, You Should Not Be Scared, she shares her top 2 fears with us. In this book, she reveals to us how we can make fear our best friends. She also reveals why it is good for us to have fears. Reena Pereira, our moderator for today, is a HR and communication professional. She has held senior leadership positions in multinationals like Standard Chartered Bank. She is the former PTA of St. Joseph's Boys High School, Bangalore, and currently contributes to the Women's Commission under the Archdiocese of Bangalore to uplift the girl child and women empowerment. Being a member of the Koti Club, Reena has been an active contributor. Over to you, Reena.
Thank you so much, Rohini, and welcome to all of you who have joined in here. We have about 30 people as of now and more expected to join in. And welcome, Avril, to this show. So to everyone here, having lived in Koramangala for most of my life and being actively in the field of music, Avril to most of us is a familiar face, but she only wears a new hat today as an author. And Avril, while Rohini did introduce me, let me introduce you to my role as a Catholic Club Eyebrows moderator through the topic of your book, Fear. When I first referred an author of mine to Samira, an author he released a book and I referred it to Samira. Both the author and Samira said, I must moderate the session. I blanked out. I still remember that day and those words, and I blanked out for the day. But both of them gave me no option to back out, saying, if you are not the right person, then possibly we don't know who is. And you have worded this beautifully in the opening chapter of your book and said, the antithesis to fear is action. Here I am today for the second time as a moderator, and here you are for the first time as an author. So let's begin, start ahead and tell us about your book and why this topic of fear on an opening book. Over to you, Avril.
Thank you so much, Reena. I had no idea how accomplished you are. I had a faint idea about you as a person, but I had no idea about the amount of accomplishments that you had. So it's absolutely a pleasure to have you with me and to moderate this conversation. And it's like you said, it's the second time for you and the first time for me in our respective positions. And the reason why I chose fear is because we all have fear within us. Each and every one of us is bound by fear in some way or the other. And when I was told that I could be an author and write a book on a book challenge in 14 days, I said, yeah, I'll do it. I'm not too sure, I'll do it. And then a friend of mine said, what's stopping you? And I thought to myself, it's fear. And so I took it up as a challenge and I decided to write this book in 14 days. And the reason I chose fear as the topic is, like I said, everybody has it. And secondly, just look at the situation we are in terms of a global pandemic. The virus is one thing, but the other thing which has totally engulfed people negatively is fear. whether you have it, whether you don't have it. I'm talking about the virus, whether you have the virus, whether you don't have the virus, you know somebody who's impacted by it. And if you don't, the entire world is impacted by it at large. And so the energy that surrounds all 7.5 billion people on this planet is fear. And so I thought this would be the right time when we are quarantined or when we are, not going to office, when we are working from home, to work on ourselves and find out what are the other fears that I have. And what is really, really, bringing out this fear in me. And that's the reason I chose to write on fear.
Thank you, Avril. I've had to log in from another device as there was a, technical
Okay.
there. But at this point in time, I heard you, and let's rewind to your background. You as a little girl, little Avril for the moment.
Yes.
It was the beginning of all fears. You call yourself, and I quote, a rambunctious teen. And now you're a coach. You went to boarding school in Rajasthan, run by the Mission Sisters of Ajmer. At 15, you were the head girl of the school, the house captain, participated in music, debates, amazing. And Avril, when you made it, there were so many students who did not make it. And this was the beginning of all fears, the need for people to validate you. And this is a fear that every school-going child goes through. And as parents have logged in here today, we all are guilty as parents of pushing our children every morning to do their best. And we do not know the fears we instill in them. And these fears may last a lifetime. What is your message here? How has fear shaped your life? And what is the message that you have for every What is the message that you have for every school-going child? Go ahead.
That's a good question, Reena, and it's one that's very, very relevant to each and every one of us, whether we are parents or not. But let me answer your question about how this can impact the parent-child relationship. So people may be wondering how I have any authority to speak on this, because I am a trained therapist, not just in mindfulness and happiness, but also as a talk therapist and a counselor. And I think that children are adults in small bodies. They understand everything and they sense your energy before you speak. So, when a child is a baby, as a toddler or as a baby, they don't have language. But a mother and child communicate beautifully because they share this bond, they share this energy. And fear is an energy. Everything is energy. You and I are energy, right? So when we foster our opinions on our children, it kind of derails their growth process because we are trying to live. Every parent means well. Let's just start off from that premise. There's no parent who doesn't mean well. And we want our children to succeed. We want to live vicariously through our children, but that's a fallacy. Just because you didn't do something in your life and now you wish that your child should do it because you don't want the child to miss out, maybe the child doesn't want to do that particular thing. Maybe the child doesn't want to play the piano. Maybe the child doesn't want to learn ballet or go to a basketball game. So I think when we shed our inhibitions as parents, our children shed their inhibitions and they come together so synergetically and seamlessly. Because once fear sets in around the age of, say, 6, 7, from 6 onwards, because before that, children are very independent. They have no sense of fear because they don't have language. And also they're operating from a very subconscious level. But then when they go to school and they start getting conditioned by their caregivers, by their teachers, and the rest of it, then what happens is that the fear sets in. So that's the time where you really need to understand the child. The child needs to be nurtured at that time, not through the tool of fear. If you don't do this, this is going to happen to you, or blah, blah, blah. But through, understanding the child. What does the child want? What is the child good at? How can you help the child through nurture, care, and love?
Okay, thanks a lot for that, Avril. And I hope that was a message to every parent out there as I would take it in. And let's speak about what most people know you for here right now, your journey to stardom. We know Avril as a star, but as frank as you were in your book, you called it the big, bad world of showbiz. And in your own words, you handed yourself over to the sharks and the snakes. They feed on fear. You oscillated from being bulimic to anorexic, from plump to thin, puppet at the mercy of record labels. And to all those listening, dreamy, starry-eyed girls, and everyone, you said you molded yourself into a star. This is for all of us here dreaming of the glamorous world. Your question, what fears do stardom bring and how did you handle it?
Okay, so I'm not going to put any young girl or boy on this call or their parents off of encouraging your child to get into show business. But the fact of the matter is that there is a casting couch. There are favors called in from girls and boys, and that's just the way the industry works. It happens in almost every field. So let's not just be like an ostrich and bury our head in the sand. And I'm being very matter of fact about that. So it's ultimately a personal choice. And I made the personal choice not to give in because number one is my strong Catholic upbringing. I mean, my father's behind me. It's been 10 years since he passed away. And that's the picture of him behind me. And he taught me values. He taught me that integrity is much more important than your bank balance. And so I refused to cow down and sell my soul, for a whole bunch of money and, a fatter paycheck or a bigger bank balance. And that's always stood me in good stead. But the fear that every single person has when they get into show business is the fear of insecurity. Everyone is insecure. You may see all these big stars on television, on the big screen, whether it's, the top actress or a top actor, every one of them is insecure because I've had the privilege of working with a lot of the top actors and actresses and singers in the industry. And save for just one or two, the rest of them are terribly insecure because it's not that the insecurity stems from the fact that they can't perform or they don't have talent. The insecurity stems from the people who surround them. Your own manager, your own agent, your own so-called friends are constantly telling you that you're not good enough, that you haven't made the cut, that you're putting on 1 pound. Yesterday I think you were slightly thinner. Today you're looking bloated. Or, the audition didn't go so well, so you've lost the job. Or, she's much better than you and she's also younger than you, so watch out. So if you're going to become a star, if you want to become a star, you have to be thick-skinned. You have to know how to negotiate. You have to be street smart. That's the word I'm going to use. So the fear of insecurity was the fear that dogged me my entire career. No matter how confident I looked on stage, I was always put down and I allowed people to emotionally abuse me because I had this fear of insecurity. Had I not had it, I would not have allowed it. But because I had it, I allowed it. So I'm not blaming anybody. Everybody earns a living, everybody each to his own. I believe in that. But when you allow yourself to be taken advantage of, means you have a fear of something that is intrinsically within you where you can't move forward. And that was my problem. I hope I was able to answer that.
You were Avril. Maybe one step further. I understand that you were schooled under Kishore Namit Kapoor.
Yes.
So anything further in his, in the interaction, something very specific.
Yes. So when I was, in Bombay, I decided to hone my skills because I came from a theatre background, doing theatre with Arjun Sachnani, having done countless fashion shows with Prasad Bidapa. So these were mentors who really built me up and I honed my craft with them. But then I wanted to get, study Hindi and, really get into the, the essence of Bollywood. So the best acting class in Bombay was Kishore Namit Kapoor's class. And I remember it was 1997 or 1997. And I was in acting class and, production houses would come and they would say, we want to work with that person. She's got the star quality, he's got. So they came around and they were auditioning for a movie called Gaddar. In which they introduced this famous actress called Amisha Patel. She went on to act with Hrithik Roshan in his debut movie. And they picked me out, from the class. And so to act opposite Sunny Deol in the lead role, because I look Kashmiri and I, whatever. So when Kishore sat me down and he used to treat me like a child, we had a very close relationship. He was like a second father to me. And he sat me down and he said, in Hindi, I won't talk in Hindi, but he started off saying beta, child. And he went on to say that there are some harsh realities that you need to know. Before that, I had no idea, Reena. I was literally like a sheltered convent girl, right? So he sat me down and he said, beta, you don't belong to yourself in show business. And I was like, what is he trying to say? I said, why don't you just spell it out, and tell me? So he said, there are favors which you'll have to perform, sexual favors for people. And I was stunned. And he said, and not just with one person, but with a lot of people. So it's your choice. Do you want to take the role or not? Without blinking an eye, Reena, it wasn't even a choice for me. I just said no. And he said, okay, let me tell you one thing. Before you make a final decision, sleep on it, because you're not going to get far in the industry. Because every single girl has to do it, unless she's married to a producer or a director, or she's friendly with them or has some sort of a relationship with them. And I still said, I will not do it. And I passed with honors from his class. And I went on to act in a few television serials and even produce a few television serials like Manzale Aur Bhi Hai on Sub TV. And I acted also in television serials in 102 in Bombay. But I never, ever compromised. I never, ever compromised, which is why I got these small, minuscule roles. But I never, ever compromised, because that's, my Catholic upbringing. So.
That's amazing. I'm sure so many of us listening here today would be glad to hear this. And now let's speak about your journey today. And I quote from your book, "You hungered for teachings like a bone-dry sponge dunked in warm water. And since you encountered them, a new you took birth. You made friends with fear and found fearlessness." Your company tagline today is align, attract, achieve. Let us know more.
Wow. Okay. So, when I came back from Bombay, I was kind of at my wit's end because I tried everything and nothing was working because of this stumbling block, which was supposed to be like a character flaw in my character, when it was actually, I think, a source of strength. So my father was diagnosed with 3rd stage cancer. And so I had to kind of literally put everything on hold and move back to Bangalore to look after him. And then the meaning of life began to really dawn on me. Because so far I was defined by my showbiz, persona, but that was never the real me. I love solitude. I love spirituality. I love, to be in meditation or prayer. I didn't like drinking and smoking and going for these publicity parties. So, and there was no work, because in Bangalore compared to Bombay, there wasn't much work. And, I'm looking after my father, who was terminally ill. So, you've got to be on call, because I was like a nurse. And at that time, I think I really began to do some self-introspection, and I began to dive deep and think, who am I? And what are all these insecurities and fears that are, kind of literally following me around and shadowing me all over? And then through my father's illness, I discovered that at the end of one's life, it's not about money or fame. It's about, what have you done with your life? What is your legacy? And your alignment comes from within. Your alignment comes from spirit. So when I, opened my company in 2017, it said, the tagline is align, attract, achieve. Because when you align yourself with your spiritual self, when you align yourself with your higher self and not your ego, which is from where most of us operate, myself included. So when you align yourself with your spiritual self, then you attract miracles into your life. So when Jesus spoke about miracles, this is what he meant. When you open yourself to, according to me, I'm not a priest, I'm not a nun, but my understanding through my own experience of the Bible and of, Christ's work in my own life is, when you align with your higher self as a child of the divine, then you attract people, situations, miracles in different forms into your life, including money, including abundance, because it's also an energy. And then you can achieve whatever you want. But then the achievement, Reena, what that becomes is not about fame necessarily. It's not about being, so and so. It's not about being the next Oprah or the next Elon Musk. It's about being extraordinary, being ordinary. So I think that's what
That's beautifully put. And while you said you're not a priest, you're not a nun, here's for all of us here. Has that ever crossed your mind?
Yeah. When I was in boarding school under the Mission Sisters of Ajmer, there are so many priests and nuns in my family, right? My father's brother's been a priest for more than 55 years. And I have so many.
You want to tell us about them? That's interesting.
Yeah, and you know, in Shepherd Convent, Sister Annunciata is my grandfather's, my grand uncle's sister-in-law, Dr. Jerry Mascarenhas' wife, Mari Mascarenhas' sister, is Sister Annunciata. She's in Good Shepherd, and then Sister Naomi, who used to be Sister Naomi Mascarenhas, who used to be the matron of St. Martha's. She's also now in Good Shepherd, and she was the principal a few years ago. She's just transferred back to Good Shepherd. She's my mom's first cousin. And, you know, there's so many nuns and priests. So I've grown up around the Bible and I've grown up around all these, you know, figures in church. But I never really understood, you know, until I went through my own experiences. I knew all the prayers by heart. I knew the litany. I was, you know, in the Legion of Mary in school. I knew all of that. So I was very enamored by nuns, especially because of the veil. I always wanted, because my mother used to keep my hair really short. So I thought like the veil was a really beautiful extension of hair. So I wanted to always wear a veil and the cross. You know, I was like besotted with being, you know, a nun. But then when I went to boarding school, I was like, I don't want to be a nun anymore because they were super strict. If you wore your, you know, your uniform, even 1 inch above the knee, you were kind of told you were going to go to hell. So I was like, oh, I don't want to be a nun now.
So you were in the Whoopi Goldberg of your convent.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
Yeah,
I used to sing for every choir. I used to serve. I was in all the choirs every single year. From the age of 10 to 15, I was in all the choirs. I was always on stage. I would represent the college for every school for every competition, and that happened in everywhere I went. In Jyoti Nivas, in Joseph's, they would, you know, make me, and I used to win all the prizes. And I used to do it with such gusto because number one, of course, you know, I wanted to do it because I knew I was good at it. And secondly, you know, like it's something nice when you can do it for your college and your, you know, your friends and you know, it's like you have that sense of victory and of pride for your, you know, like an alma mater kind of thing. So I think that was it.
Okay, so as we speak and we spoke about align attractivity, we have a question here from Jerry saying, how do you align yourself? Happy if Jerry could possibly, you know, so if anybody could read from Jenny, I'm sorry, if Jenny could put the video on and ask the question, otherwise, Avril, you can answer. Yes, hi. You'll have to unmute yourself.
Sorry, yeah. I'm finding the conversation very interesting and very thought-provoking. So I was just wondering, how could we align ourselves?
Thanks, Jenny, for your question, and thank you for your video being on so I can see you. I like to look at people. Jenny, it's a very, very valid question, and it's very simple, but it's not easy. So I'm a very factual person. Everything is simple to do, but it depends upon how much you put into it. So it may not be that easy. But your alignment comes from asking yourself a few questions. You can ask yourself a few soul-searching questions like, who am I? What do I stand for? What truly makes me happy? If money was not in the equation, what really rings my bells? What puts a smile on my face? You know, what makes me happy when I do something without, you know, expecting something in terms of a remuneration or a validation? When you find that alignment with your higher self, and it doesn't come from the ego, because the ego is always based on the outside, right? I mean, if somebody says something to you, if somebody, for instance, calls you, you know, a slang word or a slur, it doesn't really mean that you become that. If somebody calls you, for example, pardon my French, but if somebody calls you an idiot, it doesn't make you an idiot. But people get very offended because their ego is hurt. And that's not the, you know, the consciousness of Christ. That's not the consciousness of the divine. Because if Christ took offense, we wouldn't have him, you know, liberating us from, you know, original sin by dying on the cross. So I think Christ was egoless. So I think when we find that alignment within us, and when we trust that we have everything we need to get from where we are to where we want to be, and when we find that true purpose, then I think the attraction in terms of what we need in our lives to elevate us to the next level, it starts coming to you automatically. It starts coming to you effortlessly. You will get that phone call. You will talk to the right person. You will get that, you know, whatever you're looking for, it's effortless because you've aligned with your higher self. Then the attraction happens and then, you know, you can achieve whatever you want. But it has to come from a space of the divine. I don't know if it's making much sense to you. I hope it is.
Yeah, it is. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Jenny. So, as we move ahead, and to all our readers here, a short message about the process of writing with about your first book and what you could tell the other readers.
So I've had so many books in my head. I've always wanted to be a writer because I've written countless blogs and I write my own scripts for all my videos. If you go to my website, Avril Q's, every single thing on that website is written by me. But to write a book was very daunting because, you know, when you say you're going to be an author, it's like, it fills you with a little bit of fear if you haven't done it before, because it's a huge benchmark that you set for yourself, because people are going to read it and people might take cues from you. So it's a huge responsibility, because I knew I was not going to write about fiction. I want to write non-fiction. And so when I went on this challenge to write a book in 14 days and then to publish it in 21 days, I literally had one thing in my mind. I'm going to tell my story and I'm going to tell it without any frills and trills. So whatever I wanted to say, I recorded into a phone and I transcribed it and the book shaped up. I would tell anybody, if you want to write, just write. Don't
tell us about this. Sorry, Avril, can you tell us about the speaking into a device? So what's that called?
It's a software called Live Transcribe, Live, Live Transcribe.
I'll write it on the chat. Okay.
Yeah. If you can write it, Reena, I would be so grateful, because my system is a little bit far from me.
I've done that. Yeah. So
yeah, live transcribe. I can see it there. Absolutely. It's two separate words, but and it's only available on Android. It's not available on iOS, right? The Mac is iOS. Yeah. It's only available on Android. So it's beautiful. It understands your accent and it's just effortless. And then all you got to do is just copy and paste it into a Google Doc. So you load it onto your phone. You can click a button, it will copy the whole text and you straight away load it into your Google Doc. And there you've got the, the kind of skin and bones for your book. And then you just flesh it out. Every day you just sit for about 2 hours and just flesh out each chapter. It doesn't have to be in order. You just have to go with your flow and you just have to trust yourself, and the book will just write itself, believe me. I've done it, so I know it'll just write itself.
I think it's never been easier to write a book today than it was in the past. I've been part of Eyebrows for the past 2 years or more, and I've heard of people saying I had to send some printing plates or they had to courier it and all of that. And when we do something like this today, it's just amazing.
Absolutely. I mean, everything is done remotely now. I mean, the pandemic has also been positive in that sense, where everything is now done online. It's so easy. There are so many people to help you. And so I think, everything has a good and a bad. If you look at things, there's up, there's down, there's right, there's left, there's in, there's out, there's back, there's forward. There's always opposites. So I think we have to learn to kind of also enjoy this time that we have during the pandemic, where we're growing, we're learning, it's just wonderful. So I think that we are blessed that we're here on this call, 34 of us. And, we're learning something, if at all we are. But I'm hoping that we're learning something.
So if even one person could become an author after listening to Avril, I think you would have inspired someone. And
Absolutely, it's you just have to get your backside on the chair, and then the book will write itself. If you don't sit down and block off your phone, block off your mother, your dog. I have a little dog, she's sleeping here. If you don't just tell everybody I'm writing, and for 2 hours I do not want to be disturbed, and you just write for 2 hours every day, you will get the book done. I mean, I wrote a 100-page book in 2 weeks. So, you can do it. Anyone can do it.
And today you have self-publishers and multiple options of publishing.
You have so many different ways. People will just come out to help you. I always say, when you put an intention out to the universe through alignment, the universe will conspire to help you. It'll always come through. Something will come through. People will come through.
I last heard that in The Secret. So I read somewhere in your book you've met the person, or is it somebody else?
Yeah.
Bob Proctor?
Yeah, so Bob Proctor was one of the foremost teachers in The Secret. He's a very astute Roman Catholic. He lives in Toronto, and he studied with Earl Nightingale, who was a direct pupil of Napoleon Hill, who wrote the most famous self-help book, Think and Grow Rich. Mm-hmm. It's made more millionaires than any other book. It was written in the 1930s. And Bob Proctor was my coach for a year. And he actually encouraged me to leave show business and to get into what I do now. Because he said that, he actually said, because, when I was doing it, there were a lot of people who were trolling me and making fun of me, saying that, oh, you're a singer, you're a dancer, you're an actor. Who's going to take you seriously? You're such a fool. You'll never be able to do it. Who's going to even listen to you? You're going to be out of business before you even start. Mean things, And Bob asked me a very pertinent question, which is also how I came up with the line attractivity. He asked me, do you believe it? He said, the only thing that's stopping you is, do you believe them? So then I had to think. I packed my bags in Bombay in 1 month, sold everything in my flat, and I moved to Bangalore. Within 2 months, I opened my company and I just started doing free videos. I just did everything I did was just free on YouTube. I have a channel now with more than 200 videos called Avril Q on YouTube. I did free videos for almost, I still do free videos all the time, but I did free videos and it just began. One person told another, another told another, and here I am today. So.
Awesome. And we have Mary Koti here, who's written on the chat box, I'm encouraged to write. So can we see you on video, Mary?
Yeah, it'll be nice if we can see Mary.
So
I was telling Reena the other day, everyone has a story to tell.
Yeah, Mary is on. Hi, Mary.
I can't see.
Please unmute. Yes.
I've always been thinking that I wanted to write.
Okay.
Very many times when I talk to my friends, small bits and pieces about my life, they say, Mary, you must write.
Yes.
Some have told me you must have your own blogs written, and I have never done. I have this putting off attitude, and I am so encouraged. And I must get hold of this live transcribe.
Yes.
It's an app, isn't it? Yeah.
It's free. You can get it on you can get it on any Android device. It's a free app. And once you do that, you just speak into it, and then you just copy paste it into any kind of a Word document, and you can start your book. It's that easy.
Okay, thanks a lot. Yes.
You're welcome. You're most welcome, Mary.
And all the best. All the best.
Yes.
You're going to do it this time.
Thank you, Reena.
Thanks. Do we have Dr. Farad here with us? Otherwise, we move to the next. Dr. Farad, calling on for you. Okay, so we now move to the fire chat round, Avril, and this is, you can take some time to answer this, and this entire round is based on the structure of your book. For all those who would read Avril's book subsequently, she's followed a very thorough consistency. There are 7 chapters, and all the 7 chapters follow the same format. So it starts with an illustration and then moves to the name of the fear. You have the name, age, occupation of the person, since she has been upfront and outright and written about the people who come to her for therapy with their permission. So it starts with the name, age, and occupation, and then a short story. After the story is the key essence, like a summary. Each key essence has 4 points. I don't know how you can be that consistent. And the 4th point is the same. And finally, it ends with a quote. Thankfully, that changes, but it's still a quotation. So here's your chat round on the book. And Vinay from the IT division of Catholic Club, here's the cue to move on to the next round and slowly start getting the screen sharing up and ready for the question and answer round. But Avril, here's over to you. And it begins. Why did you choose stories as a method?
Because I think stories are so relatable, Reena. Everybody has a story. And when you tell a story about something as daunting as fear, people are willing to read it because there are too many technical books on fear. But you can relate to people. And so when people, when I'm talking about, 5 people's stories about fear, including mine, 6 people, it's more relatable. So they open up and they're willing to read and relate to the story. Because people have this thing, this happened only to me, but that's not true. It's happened to so many people, but you just don't know about it. So you think, no, it's happened only to me.
Okay. You speak very well and all of that, but your story writing technique was very, very simple. Why that simplicity?
Because I'm a simple person. I don't have the gift of fancy words. I'm not, trained to be an author. I'm not eloquent like Shashi Tharoor, I guess. I think, there is a beauty in simplicity. There is a relatability in simplicity. You don't want people to read a book and then come across some really ginormous word and have to look up a dictionary. I want children to read this book. I want, a 10-year-old, a 12-year-old to read this book, because that's really going to help them. So that's why I wanted to do it. And it just came effortlessly. I didn't really edit it much. Whatever I transcribed, I kind of just framed it and just wrote it. So it was like quite unfiltered.
Okay. Every chapter started with an illustration. Why?
Because the mind thinks in pictures. And when you see a picture depicting fear, you can relate to it better.
Okay. Name, age, and occupation. Witty ones at that.
Yeah, I wanted, since the book is so heavy about fear, even though it's relatable and I've used a little bit of humor here and there. When these people came to me, they were all suffering from these different fears, right? And then I wanted to show people the end before the beginning. I wanted to show people, so for example, there's a girl called, Vinuta, and she's 46 and she's a single mother and she was suffering with an abusive marriage, blah, blah, blah. So I didn't want to say what she was suffering, because you're going to read about it in the chapter. So what I wanted to say was now, so everything begins with now, happily
single, yes.
Yeah, happily single and very confident with a brand new job. A happily single mother, because she is so happy. She is so confident and she's been able to get whatever she set her mind to.
And that's a message when we do come out of it and accept therapy as a method of addressing our fears. All of us come out happy in the end, and you've shown that end result. Yes.
I also wanted to break that stigma, Reena. I wanted to break the stigma of therapy, because mental issues are still looked down upon in India, and I wanted to break that stigma. There's nothing wrong with you. Like if you went to a doctor for a cold and a cough, there's no stigma attached to it. So if you go to a counselor or to a therapist because you have fear, because you have a phobia, or because you're depressed, I mean, good for you. At least you diagnosed it. There's no shame in having a mental issue. Not at all. I want to break that stigma.
Yeah. So, so you had key essence at the end of after the whole chapter, you write it again in 4 points. Why?
Because I want people to take away. See, when you read a story, you can relate to it, but what are you taking away from it? I don't want people to have to underline in the book, oh, she's trying to say this, okay. I want to give them 4 points, which encapsulate the whole thing, but it's now relating to you. What can you do based on this story? What can you do in your life now? Because if you don't take action, Reena, everything just remains a sandcastle and just something airy-fairy in your head, right?
And Avril, when you put down points for action, one is when I open up it's your action points for your life. And when you open a book a second time, you will never read the story again, but then it becomes a self-help. These are the 4 points that I will do.
Absolutely. You've got it bang on. Absolutely. So when you do it the second time, you may read it, you may not read it, but you'll definitely go through just 4 points. It's only 1 page. So you're definitely going to look at that again. And that's going to be a handbook for you to get to the next level.
And why was the 4th point in all the 7 fears, in every single one of them, forgive yourself and all the people involved? My question to you is, how important is forgiveness in all your 7 fears and in all the fears possibly in the entire world? How important is forgiveness in setting you free?
Forgiveness is the most important thing. I mean, look what Christ did for us. I mean, if Christ didn't forgive his persecutors and if he didn't give up his life for each and every one of us, we wouldn't be here now. We are born again through the blood of Christ. And I think that's, if Christ can do that, if Christ as a man could forgive people for crucifying him, and none of us can imagine the pain he went through, the pain his mother went through. So we have to forgive ourselves, because we are most rude and most unjust to ourselves. If we spoke loudly about the way we converse with ourselves in our heads, we would be shocked. I tell my private therapy clients, record yourself, your inner dialogue. You wouldn't even speak to your maid like that, because your maid won't come to work the next day. Right?
Yes.
So unless you forgive yourself, you can't forgive another person. The only reason why we have grudges towards other people is because we have grudges towards ourselves. When you understand that forgiveness is actually the cure for everything, and it's the only way you can be happy, You start with yourself and you build outwards.
I think that was a beautiful answer, and to everyone, and that's why I finalized Avril for Catholic Club, and it all fits in right now. What about the quotations at the end of every chapter?
These are people who I greatly admire. Maya Angelou I wish I would have met her. She is somebody who has impacted my life so deeply through her work.
Kabir, Franklin Roosevelt.
Franklin Roosevelt. Then we have Krishnamurti, Jiddu Krishnamurti, and we have my favorite poet, Rumi. And I think they have eloquently brought out the relationship between fear, between forgiveness, love, and compassion. And that's why I chose, I literally scanned, all their, because I know so many of their quotes, but I wanted it to be relevant to each chapter. And that's why I wanted each of them to be different. And I think, they make perfect sense to end the chapter.
Perfect. So this is not about your book, but let's hear from you. Being a star yourself, a starstruck moment.
Usha Utub. I've sung with international celebrities like Dana Gillespie, Inner Circle, Michael Loves to Rock. I've sung for Queen Margaret, Prince Philip.
On that note, you sang an English song. I want my chocolate with an international region.
Yeah, so I Want My Chocolate was an international single, but then, it didn't do well because my father at that time was diagnosed with terminal cancer. So I lost the entire tour with a very famous DJ Akil in India. And so it didn't happen. But, everything happens for a reason. So I think my purpose was to do what I do now. My purpose was never to be a star. Even though I enjoyed it and it gave me certain confidence and leverage to do what I do now. But I think this is what I was born to do. This is my purpose. I think this is my alignment now.
I'm sorry, back to your starstruck moment.
Usha Utub. She's the most gracious person in show business. And believe me, people, there are not many gracious people in show business, especially women. They're very catty and very insecure. And I've been, guilty of that myself because, it's basically like a protection mechanism, right? You're catty to other people because you are insecure. So it was neat. At one point, I was like that. But I'll never forget this one instance when two instances, actually, if you would give me the liberty of telling you this, because I want to extrapolate that people like Usha Utub are where they are because they are generous, they are truly talented, and they have a lot of love and compassion. So when I first was singing with Usha at one of Vijay Malia's events at the Bangalore Palace, she was already with her whole orchestra and with her bindi and her bangles and her sari, and the crowd was really on their feet. And then she introduced me and no one clapped when I came on stage. I was maybe 19. Nobody, they were like, who is she? Usha Utub, and who is she? And Usha Utub said, well, the concert is not going to go on till each and every one of you put your glasses down and clap for this young lady. And I was so shocked. And then I was singing at the CCFC in Calcutta, which is the biggest club there. And there were 25,000 people for New Year. And one of the band boys brought up a napkin. And it had her trademark bindi because she makes her bindi with her lipstick. So she had put her bindi on that and she had written, your biggest fan. And of course, I knew it was Usha Utub. But that's the grace of somebody like Usha Utub. And in her case also, she never really got far because she's been honest enough about her struggles. She's never been able to kind of, do the things that were expected of her. But look where she is and look how happy she is and what she's accomplished.
And finally, a message to your dad, to whom you've dedicated this book. He's not only looking from above, but from behind you as well.
Yeah, I know. That was on his 25th wedding anniversary. My dad we had a very tumultuous relationship, but at the end, we were as close as ever because I actually helped him transition from this life into the next. And I want to tell you that when he was dying and I was praying and he was clutching the rosary and we were praying at St. Martha's, and I asked him, Dad, can you see the light? And he said, yes. And then I said, why don't you go? Because, you want to be with Jesus and Our Lady. And he said, because I don't want to leave you and your brother and your mother. So promise me you're going to take care of your mom. And I said, of course I promise. And then he let go, and slowly the life began to kind of, drain out of him, and slowly he passed away. It was very peaceful, even though he was in a lot of pain. There were a lot of people who said that, he looked so radiant when he died because Reena, he prepared for his death from day one. Because when he asked me 2 years prior, Avril, am I going to live? I had to tell him the truth. I could not tell him a lie. So I told him, no, Dad, unfortunately, you're not. And from that day forwards, the two of us became one. I did everything for him, and it was just wonderful. And I'm getting a little emotional, but excuse me.
Okay, so we continue the emotional note. Your uncle has sent you a question all the way from US. If Vinay is there from CC, could you please share screen and play that? And while that is being played, could we have Dr. Raj? Dr. Raj please unmute and ask a question? Okay, we have the video here, so we'll be to that.
Good evening, everybody. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Gerard Arwana, and I am the uncle of Avril Q, who has written this book, You Should Be Scared. It's her method of helping people getting over their fears. And it's through the Kundalini Plus method here. I've enjoyed the book, and I have 3 questions. How many sessions, number 1 would be, how many sessions do you, Avril, take with your clients before they overcome the fears? Is it 1, 2, or several? And if it is several sessions, what methods do you use to say that they have overcome their fears? And the third question is, do you follow up with your clients? And do they follow up with your method? And is there a certain amount of clients who may relapse? And if they do, what do they have to go through next? Those are my questions. And I thank you, Avril, for a very nice book. And those of you in the audience for listening to me. Thank you.
So thank you, Dr. Gerard. This was Dr. Gerard from US, an accomplished surgeon and professor of surgical oncology, also Avril's uncle. And Dr. Farhad Vijay Arora has a similar question. Could you please unmute Farhad and ask your question if you're still here? He's a friend of Avril too. Farhad? Okay, so the question is on the screen.
I am here.
Yeah, okay, hi, sorry.
So I read the book, and I mean, the book is, just a second. Okay, hi.
Good to see you. Just to introduce you to the audience, Dr.
Right.
Farhad is the COO of Darwin Group, an actor, producer, and director himself, and introduce exotic brands in India and worldwide. Over to you, Dr. Farhad.
All right. Thank you so much, Reena. I love the book. I mean, it's firstly, it makes you realize of so many hidden talents that everybody has natively within them, but they have not been able to harness its power. One, I just had a query concerning the book. I mean, whatever was imparted in the book, that if one is in a situation where one is framed, and there has been proof and allegations which has been collected against you, in that moment, how do you harness the power of fear?
Thank you so much, Farhad, for your question and for being here. I know that you're very busy with the Mumbai government and you have to run, so I'll discuss this with you in private in great detail, but I'll just give you an abbreviated version right now.
Lovely.
It's a very pertinent question these days because there are a lot of allegations being flung at people who are not really guilty of those allegations. So let's just take a scenario where you're not guilty of the allegations that have been framed against you. If you're coming from that space, the easiest way to handle it would be 2 ways. Number 1 is you have to understand that the person who is accusing you of doing something that you're not guilty of is very insecure and very flawed in their own mind, in their own heart. And there is some insecurity that's making them do this. So there is a hidden agenda. Once you understand that, and if you are already aligned within yourself, then you are able to navigate through that in terms of, number one, definitely fighting to clear your name, but you will be able to do it in a much more civilized way without kind of mudslinging. And secondly, if need be, Farhad, to hand over the victory to that person. Because let's face it, when I say the victory to that person, on a broader stage, instead of mudslinging, you could be gracious enough to take it offline. You don't need to do that in public, because everybody, every newspaper, every magazine is looking for things like this to sell to the public. And we're glorifying violence. When I say violence, this is a form of violence also, attacking somebody's character, maligning somebody's name. It's a form of violence too. Just because it's not physical violence doesn't mean that it's less in brutality. So I think that instead of arming these media companies who are unnecessarily taking advantage of people and making people do things in the name of publicity, I think we should be gracious enough to acknowledge what's happening, to take it offline, because there's something very, very pertinent with which Desmond Tutu says. He says, and I think His Holiness the Dalai Lama says the same thing. They say, forgive the person, but don't forgive the offense. Forgive the person, but don't forgive the offense, because you have to understand that the person is a victim of his own delusions. So the person you can forgive, but don't. So for example, if it's a rapist, you can forgive the rapist, but don't condone the crime. The crime has to get justice. So if you are in a state of alignment, Farhad, then you understand, number one, that person is in pain, that person is flawed, that person himself is insecure and needs validation and attention. Once you understand that, then you move into a space of alignment, and you can definitely take that offline without giving too much time and space and those 15 minutes of fame to this particular person, because that's what they want. When an allegation is framed, they're looking for that attention and that, that time of 15 minutes, like Andy Warhol said. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Well, yes, to a great extent. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
We have Dr. Srinivas Rao here. Thank you, Dr. Farhad. We have Dr. Srinivas Rao here also. If you could please unmute yourself, and if even you could answer your uncle's question through his, I think it's similar. Hi, yes. Dr. Srinivas.
Hi. Hi, Will. We know each other for the last 9 years, and I could see that you have transcended all barriers. I think we met first time with Anil Kapoor's show, isn't it? And you had a great shows and all the way. You were in Bangalore. From there again, you went to Mumbai.
Avril, you sang AGOG with him. That's the thing.
Yes.
Yeah. She has been a very courageous, and she's talking about a book, No Fear. Now, I don't think that she has any fear. And last 9 years, and she could handle an audience of 30,000 in my campus. I think it was in 2013 or 14.
Yes.
So writing a lady who transcended all the barriers in her life and writing book for a fear, and it's a big question mark for me. So I would like to ask you one question: that fear of existence, or fear of losing, or fear of uncertainty. These are the big questions now. See, like a position is always in existence, like political position or a power position, or maybe an official position. Holding a position is the biggest fear now. Then comes to losing, position, or losing money, losing wealth, losing peace. And the third thing is uncertainty with life and expectations. I think you have not, covered this thing in your book.
Yes.
Some other stories which I read your book, the stories of few people, but it will be good enough that you speak more on the transcending of barriers in your life, which we know personally. I mean, there's a lot of people in Bangalore know you that you are very courageous. So that could you highlight some of the biggest transcending barriers and also fear of losing?
Thank you for your question, Dr. Srinivas. You always come out with the tough questions for me.
Yeah.
But it's very complex in terms of the questions, how they feed into each other. So let's talk about the first one, the fear of having a position and then losing it. So once we understand that everything is transient, there's nothing that's permanent in life. I mean, this whole world is not permanent. You know, I mean, the moment we are born, we definitely know that we're going to die. So it's the beginning. When we're born, it's the beginning of the end. So once we realize that, you know, every up has a down and every down has an up, then when we have the position, we enjoy it with responsibility and with integrity. And the reason why people, you know, when they're in a position of power, why they take advantage of that power is because they're actually insecure, because they know they have only this much window to operate. And then they're going to lose that power. So they're trying to basically usurp as much as possible. And when you know that in your mind that, you know, that you're doing something that's inauthentic, then the fear of losing it automatically comes because you're insecure. When you're insecure about something, you're insecure about losing it primarily. You can't be insecure about yourself. You'll be insecure about something within yourself that you're scared that you're going to lose. But when you've already made peace with it, when you know that this whole life is transient, and in the Bible it says dust to dust, ashes to ashes, when you know that deep in your soul, when you have the consciousness of the divine within you, then this body is just flesh. This position is just transient. And then, of course, you spoke about change. The only constant in life, Dr. Srinivas, like you and I both know, is change.
Yes, absolutely.
If we don't change, we are dead. I mean, when I sat here at 5 p.m., I'm not the same person now. I changed at 5, milliseconds past 5. You know, cells are dying, cells are born, consciousness is changing. Reena's asking me questions, I'm interacting with people, I'm getting new ideas. So change is the only constant. And your questions are so wonderful for young people, especially on this call, and parents, because when we instill these ideas into our children and into ourselves, that this life is transient and what we leave behind as a legacy is the most important, and we have to build that up, then I think these fears of power, losing it, and change become insignificant. And it's very simple, but to do it is the real challenge.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you, Dr. Srinivas. We move over to Dr. Raj Ali. Thank you. We move into Dr. Raj Ali. Could we please have you unmute yourself?
Yes.
Dr. Raj.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, just to introduce you, this is an old and dear friend, as Avril calls him, and he persuaded Avril to become an author, an excellent sound engineer, a brilliant singer, and an accomplished doctor, has released multiple music albums in Egypt and Arabic, even for kids. Good to have you here. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Avril, all of us know how dashing and confident you have been. And actually speaking, when we think of anything in retrospect, it becomes so easy to answer questions. But for this reason, I would like to ask you one question, and please give the answer in 2 ways. One, in the point in time when I'm speaking about, and one now.
Okay.
So one answer will be in retrospect, and
Absolutely.
one answer will be for today.
Yes.
What were your fears as an artist of having your competence, overpowering you or giving you a tough time, or, even failing, for instance?
Yeah.
What were your fears when you were growing as an artist, especially in Mumbai, where there was a tough competition? And how did you overcome them then? And what you would have done if those things happened to you today?
Wow. I'm getting tough questions, Reena. Okay. So
Shakti has also asked a similar question on chat. What's your biggest fear? So if you can.
Okay. I'll integrate them. So the first, thank you, Raj, and I'm so happy that you decided to join us. Like I said, Raj has been such a close friend. He's mastered my albums. He was the one who told me, you can write, why don't you write? And that was 2 years ago. So Raj, you inspired me to write this book. Coming to the question that he asked, when I was an artist, everything used to scare me. I used to wake up scared. I used to go through my day scared, and I used to go to sleep scared. I thought I was the worst singer. I thought I was ugly. I thought I was not able to perform. I thought that everybody was better than me. And so I was so insecure that I really couldn't handle myself in a group of my peers, except when I was on stage. When I was on stage, I used to operate from a place of an alter ego. So when I was on stage, I would, operate from this space where I was like a different person. And that person was confident on stage. That person knew how to get an audience going. But if I was recording in a studio, I was very insecure. And Raj knows this because Raj, do so many takes and he would say, no, but it's perfect, it's good. And I would be like, no, I didn't sing this right. So I was extremely insecure and the competition used to kill me every time. And then, of course, because of this casting couch business, I never got a job. I was always losing out. And it was really, really, really tough for me. It was traumatic for me at that time. If I knew what I knew now, I don't know whether the casting couch would have changed, but maybe I would have been able to find opportunities, if at all, I don't know. I would have been able to navigate through certain situations better. Because what I know now about love, about compassion, about alignment, about all the things that I'm talking about finding my own self within myself, I would have been able to handle them with more grace. And perhaps I would be able to navigate certain situations better without fear, knowing fully well what I was getting into.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Raj, for joining us. Before we close, Avril, any closing remarks, any closing answers to your uncle's question that you may have missed?
Yes. So my uncle is talking about a method that I'm in the process of trademarking. It has 4 protocols. And what I do with that method is I help people with a set of 6 sessions. Because when I do private therapy with people, they need special care. They can't just come to a workshop, and I have different kinds of workshops. So they need special care and I need to customize the program for them. So whenever people are coming with fears or phobias, it's not a one size fits all. We have to go through them, as individualistic people, just like you would go to a doctor, for a particular problem. So when I do 6 sessions with a person, in my experience of 90 minutes each, it's for 40 days, it's once a week. The chances of them getting absolutely okay are about 80%. And then, of course, I do follow-ups with them, every month. However, I've worked with people who had, terrible phobias like sexual abuse or, different kinds of violations or alcohol abuse, or many celebrities who have gone through a lot of abuse, in the Kannada film industry and stuff like that. For those people, it takes sometimes even 12 sessions. Now, as far as relapsing is concerned, if the person follows the protocol as a daily protocol, which I give them, my relapse rate is less than 2%. And I'm not gloating about it. It's because I know exactly what works for this person. And I customize a schedule where it has to be done every day. It's like you brush your teeth, like you evacuate your bowels, and like you have a bath. It's something that you have to do for your soul every day and for your mind every day. So it's a short protocol, maybe half an hour, that you can break up and do during the day. But very few people have relapsed with this method. And I'm thankful for that, because this method is not something that I created on my own, because I'm not a genius. I think it came through me again through a certain divine consciousness.
Thanks a lot. Thank you. So we close with this. And like I've even said on the chat, we know you for your singing, for your song. You may be renewed as a person, but I'm sure your voice would never change. It could have got better. What do you have lined up for all of us here at Catholic Club today?
So, being on this forum at the Catholic Club, I thought that it was best to dedicate this one to Jesus, because, he is our rock, he is our savior, and all things are possible through him. And I have great faith. I'm a very spiritual person. I'm not very religious, but I'm very spiritual. And I definitely think that if I am doing anything of service today for people, even through my voice as a singer, it is all because of the grace of the divine. So I think that everybody would relate to this song. And the reason I chose it is because if we just are, and as a mindfulness coach, I teach people to be present in the moment, not in the past, not in the future, because the past you can't get back, and the future is illusion. We don't know the time of our death. We don't know what's going to happen even after half an hour of this call. So the best time to do is now. So I chose one day at a time. And I think that, people can relate to it. So I think I'll just do one chorus and one verse, because in the, respective time, because it's already 6 past 6. and I know people have other things to do. So I'm just going to do a chorus and a verse. And I haven't really practiced, and I'm singing a cappella. So all you musicians out there, this is a disclaimer, or that I'm putting out there. Okay, so here we go. I'm only human, and I'm just a woman. Lord, let me believe in all I could be and all that I am. Show me the stairway I have to climb. Lord, for my sake, teach me to take one day at a time. One day at a time. Jesus, that's all I'm asking of you. Just give me the strength to do every day what I have to do. Yesterday, Jesus, and tomorrow may never be mine. Lord, help me today. Show me the way, one day at a time. Lord, for myself, teach me to take one day at a time.
We can unmute and give her a hand.
Oh, thank you.
And while it may be time to close, and it's over to you, Shanti, I'd welcome all of you to please write a comment. I wouldn't want to say anything about how Avril sounded. We've been listening to her sing, and she only gets better with time, one day at each time. But you all can write in a comment on the chat box and leave an encouraging word, spread kindness around. Back to you, Shanti. Time to close.
Thank you so much, Reena. Thank
you, Avril. Thanks you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for inviting me. I've enjoyed this conversation so much. And to all the people who asked questions, my friends and others, thank you so much. And I hope that this has provided value to each and every one of you. And I want to just send you so much love, light, joy, and the compassion and peace of our Lord Jesus.
Thanks a lot. And, request everybody to write the same on the comment box, so that we know what this session has been to you. Avril, I don't know how your book reached me, but here we are today. It just reached me as a forward, the image, and here we are today. It's been a great session. Thanks a lot.
And
Shanti, over to you.
So that was really beautiful, Avril. Align, attract, achieve. Everything is transient. Thank you, Avril, for those, extraordinary insights that you provided us during this evening. On behalf of Catholic Club and the Eyebrows Subcommittee, I would like to thank you, Avril, for your positivity and your inspiration. You have fired up the authors in all of us. I'm sure there are many who would like to start writing immediately. And thank you to Reena for digging out all those nuggets of wisdom. She has gone through the book, you can see.
Absolutely.
Yes. Enjoyed it.
Yes. Thank you, dear viewers, for joining us, and looking forward to each one of you joining us on our future Eyebrows sessions. So thank you one and all, and hope to see you in the future.
Thank you so much, everyone. And I hope to see you somewhere, sometime in life. And I just want to wish you all the best for 2021. And if you can pick up a copy of the book, it's available on Amazon, on Kindle and in paperback. And I think that you like it. I think it'll be a good read. So if you can, it'll be a good read. And if you need to reach anytime for anything, I'm always here. Thank you to everybody, Marsha, Angel, and so many other people who have been sending in beautiful messages. Much. And I hope that I can get a recording of this so I can share.
Sit down.
I'll hold you to that.
Sit down.
Thanks a lot. Do we have Marsha here?
Yeah, I think Marsha's there. Yes.
You want to? Marsha, Avril, closing words, and then we can, thank you for your comments. A few closing words, and then we can close out. So I think that's fine. Thanks, Shanti.
Thank you, everybody. Take care. Thanks so much, and God bless.
Thank you. Thanks.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
See you. Bye. God bless. Stay safe.
You too. Bye.
See you. Bye.